Today, we're diving deep into the story of a company that is almost definitely in your kitchen right now, Nestlé. This isn't a story about one brilliant idea. It's about two, born just a year apart and set on a collision course that would end up creating a global food empire.
And it all starts with this question. How did a scientific breakthrough, something designed to save babies' lives, accidentally kick off a 30-year corporate war? Well, that's the wild origin story of this food giant. Okay, part one. Let's set the scene. We're going back to the 1860s in Switzerland. Two totally separate companies, started by two very different kinds of people, were about to unknowingly lay the groundwork for a massive corporation. They were on parallel tracks, and they had no idea they were about to crash right into each other. So on one side, you have Henri Nestlé. He's a pharmacist, and he's horrified by how many infants aren't surviving. He's on a mission to solve this, and he invents farine lactée, basically a milk-based baby food that literally saves a child's life. Then on the other side, you've got these American industrialist brothers, the Pages. They're tackling a totally different problem. How do you stop fresh milk from spoiling so fast? Their solution was condensed milk, which created a whole new way to sell safe, long-lasting food. So you've got a lifesaver and a game changer, both about to take on the world. For about a decade, they stayed in their own lanes. But then, in 1878, the peace was over. Nestlé jumps into the Pages Brothers territory with its own condensed milk. And almost immediately, their company, Anglo-Swiss, fires back with its own infant cereal. This wasn't just competition. It was an all-out war. They started copying each other's products, slashing prices. It was brutal. But here's the twist. After 30 years of trying to destroy each other, nobody won. They were both exhausted. So they merged, creating one much more powerful company out of the wreckage of their rivalry. So this new powerhouse company is born just in time to face the most chaotic century in modern history. The next few decades were going to be a trial by fire, with 2 world wars and a global depression that would almost wipe them out. World War I was a strange blessing and a curse. On one hand, governments were desperate for their products, buying up tons of condensed milk for soldiers. But on the other hand, the war completely shattered their supply chains in Europe. They couldn't get the raw materials they needed, so they made a brilliant pivot. They started buying up factories in the US and Australia, moving production out of the war zone. And get this, by the end of the war, they had more than doubled in size. But that huge wartime boom led directly to a near-fatal crash. As soon as the war ended, all those military contracts just vanished. Suddenly, Nestlé was sitting on mountains of unsold products. And in 1921, for the first and only time in its entire history, the company posted a massive financial loss. They were right on the edge of going bankrupt. This was a huge turning point. The board brought in an outsider, a banker named Louis Dapples, to basically perform emergency surgery on the company. His plan was pretty radical for the time. He brought in professional managers, cleaned up the chaotic operations, put all the researchers under one roof, and started the long, painful job of paying down their massive debt. This didn't just save the company. It built the modern corporate structure that Nestlé still has today. And it's funny, right out of this period of crisis comes one of their most famous inventions ever. In 1938, they launched Nescafé, and it was a total game changer. The world's first really good instant coffee. It became a staple for Allied soldiers during World War II, and for everyone else, it basically kicked off a whole new age of convenience in the kitchen. All right, part 3. After the war, things really took off. Nestlé went on an epic shopping spree, turning itself from a dairy company into a true food conglomerate. But as it got bigger, it came under a much bigger microscope and ran straight into a controversy that would shake the company to its foundations. Their strategy was pretty simple. Just buy everything. They started snapping up brands that are household names today. Maggi Soups, Findus Frozen Foods. Then came the massive one in 1984, Carnation. That deal didn't just get them Coffee Mate, it launched them into the huge pet food market with Friskies. You add KitKat and Gerber to the pile later on, and suddenly they're not just the milk company anymore. They're a supermarket superpower. The thinking behind all this growth was a concept they called the Nestlé virtuous circle. It's actually a pretty simple but powerful idea. You find ways to run your business more efficiently, then you take the money you saved and pump it into your big brands to help them grow. That growth makes you more money, which you then reinvest. It's a self-fueling engine for growth, all under that famous motto, good food, good life. But becoming a global giant came with huge new responsibilities. And in the 1970s, Nestlé faced its biggest scandal, Activists accused the company of marketing its infant formula in ways that discouraged breastfeeding in developing countries. This sparked a massive international boycott, and it struck right at the heart of their identity, a company that started, remember, by saving an infant's life. That boycott was another one of those critical moments that forced them to change. It made the company really grapple with its power and influence around the world. In the end, Nestlé became one of the very first companies to adopt the World Health Organization's code on how to market breast milk substitutes. It was a really painful but necessary lesson that completely changed how the company saw its role in global health. So, that brings us to today. Part 4. The future of food. After 150 years of growth and controversy, Nestlé is now facing what might be its toughest challenge of all: how to reinvent a massive old-school giant for a completely new world.
And you don't have to be a Wall Street analyst to see the pressure they're under. The numbers tell the story pretty clearly. Their stock prices dropped quite a bit, and their sales growth is the slowest it's been in years. These aren't just stats, they're warning signs that a big company needs to make some big changes.
Their response is a huge restructuring plan called Fuel for Growth. The big goal is to save 3 billion Swiss francs by 2027. They plan to do this by streamlining everything, automating more processes, and yes, making the tough decision to cut around 16,000 jobs worldwide. The idea is to become a leaner company so they can free up a lot of cash to invest in the future. And a huge piece of that future is sustainability. I mean, they've laid out this incredibly ambitious roadmap to get to net zero. The goals you see here aren't small tweaks. This is a complete reimagining of their entire supply chain, from using regenerative agriculture for their ingredients to making all their packaging recyclable. They are making a massive bet that the future of food has to be sustainable. You can actually see this shift happening on the grocery store shelves. They're actively changing what they sell to fit this new goal of being a nutrition, health, and wellness company. That means a big push into the things we're all buying more of, like plant-based foods and drinks, products that are good for us, and hopefully good for the planet too. So it all leaves us with this one big question. Nestlé was born by solving the food challenges of the 19th century. Now, as they go through this massive, painful transformation, you have to ask, can this 150-year-old giant, a company forged in rivalry and crisis, really reinvent itself again to help solve the huge food and sustainability challenges of our time?